Basically, what I been doing recently is that since COVID broke and changed our world, I've been working with different companies with also the Facebook journalism project a lot in pretty much all over the Americas, Africa, and Southeast Asia, and trying to work in Europe, trying to work with not Africa. Africa is with another client, trying to work with media startups and sometimes with legacy media to see what we can make in terms of because the money is shrinking from advertising. People are eager to get more and more information, and this has become an interesting moment for people to take advantage. And because innovation spurs in moments of need, it's been a challenging 18 no 14 15 months, but I'll try to share some of the problems and some of the opportunities here. And again, if you don't understand, just interrupt me. But basically, what we're doing right now is like we're looking at things, we're resetting, we're changing how we want things to be displayed, to be how the ways we work, and we're repackaging, we're putting them in a different form out there to see if our audience can engage more with that. So, as I was saying, it's the pandemic when it started a bit over a year ago. We're all inside our houses, most of us inside our houses, or very limited in movement and very anxious for information, and that represented, I think, a very important moment to journalism in terms of trying to give people what they need and also give them a sense of security and some safeness in how we go up about our things in the world. And basically, it also speed up the fall down of a lot of media outlets. Of course, people have lost their jobs, which is really, really bad. And then there's like media outlets that got closed. But in the sense, and a year past, this is even more present right now, is that we need to focus on what's really important for us. Is what is that? Who is our audience, and what service are we doing to them? What are we talking to our audience? Are we listening to them? Are we helping them get through their lives? What is different that we're doing that is actually improving other people's lives? And focusing on how that experience happens has been a game changer for most. I mean, media startups, for legacy media, the ones that have focus on their users, on their audience, and actually talk to them, and then with the feedback that they get from their audience, give them something back that is really super important and reliable, so they can actually have this routine of going back and back again to your products. So this is my I would say that this has been my rule since ages ago, if some years ago. But so know who you are. I mean, I would advise you, if especially if you're small, don't try to be everything. This is very important. This is one of the first things that you, in my opinion, you need to, and then interrupt me if you disagree. But after when let me just finish this. It's just who you are. Are you providing information for the whole country, for your own area, for this specific audience that goes from 15 to 35? Try to understand who is your typical user to a sense. What are you providing? Are you providing information about, transportation, health, economy, politics? Don't try to be a lot of things at the same time, because first, it's super complicated, because that's a lot of work, and even big news media outlets have problems with that. Second, is going to be confusing for your audience. I mean, if you're the ones that are very good at sports and then health, if you start doing all these things about, I mean, economy, and it's not related to your core things of sports and health, it might be complicated. So in terms of positioning, this is super important, and know who you're talking to. I mean, I've had clients that doing very well in terms of money, that were assumed that they knew who they were talking to, and this is in all a set of different countries, so very different business contexts. and they say, well, we know we're catering, our products are designed for this very intelligent audience, college educated from 25 to 45. And then when we start going through the metrics, it really didn't pan out like that. It was much more broadened and diverse. And they were missing a lot of business opportunities and verticals to work with them because of that, because they assumed, they didn't go and check. And you can check using basic metrics of Google, of course, Google Analytics and all these different, tools that that can be used. But also, if you start talking to people, one very interesting tool, and it seems very obvious, but most media outlets, especially startups, don't use it. But even legacy, which is just ask questions. Leave it's not even the comments box, but just ask questions to people. Simple things like, which kind of subjects would you like to have us, covered by us? What was the most interesting piece you read from us in the past week or in the past month? Give us your top 5 of news that you enjoy. What are the themes that you enjoy the most? What do you want to read? What time of the day you want to read? Things like that sometimes sound silly, but they're super, super important pieces of information, because when you have them, you can actually start designing and creating your product more focus onto that that audience. And for the audience, is really, really rewarding, because it shows that you're listening, that there's a relationship, because this is not a monologue from, I know what the audience wants and I'm gonna give them to them without listening to what they're saying. It's an exchange. And in the beginning, it might be complicated because it takes a bit of extra work, but it's also very, very, in terms of business, is rewarding, because you know the needs of your audience, and it feels like, you have something going on. It's like a relationship. It's like it's not like it's not like an old school teacher saying something to their students and the students are all quiet and don't talk. It's like friends having a dialogue. So there's like this, there's an interest from both parts, and there's like empathy from both parts, and that's really important. So this is like the first rule: know who you are and know who you're talking to. And then you start analyzing in terms of your audience, and what patterns of consumption and engagement can you understand? Like, does your audience want more things connected to sports? Does your audience has a higher interaction rate when it's about politics? It's in the morning. It's by on your on laptop, or it's on a mobile. And what are you getting from the analytics, like and the metrics? Do you have, we have a lot of people on weekdays, but we don't have a lot of people on weekends? Maybe you should change what you're doing on weekends, because people on weekends don't want to read about politics or the economy or finance all the time. They need something more relaxing. Just giving you an example. And always listen to the users. I always say this: it feels like don't feel like you're putting the faith of your products, of your media outlet, in the hands of the users, which in a way you are. But that's, if you do it well, that's a really good experience, because it's the users are much more I wouldn't say smarter, but they're much more intelligent in a way than you think, and they also like to feel that you're listening to them, but at the same time they like to be surprised. So if you start listening carefully, you can give them both, and that's can be a game changer in terms of what you're doing. And then understand who the audience is, what experience they like. I mean, we found out in a couple of big clients that they didn't like. I mean, it was this. I'm talking about super big media outlets in the world, and then there was this refusal from a lot of the users to read hard news in the morning. Like, there was this bombing in this place, there was this reports on war and things like that, and it was weird because they wouldn't mind to read that after lunch, but in the morning it was complicated. So we made some experiences and we changed the time. I mean, it's not like we stopped reporting about those serious issues. We moved them on the time frame, on time schedule. We adapt some things, and the results were much more interesting. But what would happen is that people would see the first brief in the morning, and they would say, oh, this is like super heavy, and they would just go. If you move them a bit down, and then if you put them back again, like at 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, like the time that is right now in Pakistan, the impact was much more higher. For me, that was a surprise. I wasn't counting on that input from the data, but it did happen. And also things like you have the service feeling. I say here, this got really big on COVID, but all these small formats that people normally did not read, like information things in the morning, beyond the whole traffic and the weather, but things about contamination in the air, how the COVID numbers are doing. Don't go to this area of the market because there was this traffic jams and things here, and there was also like this there's a protest and you shouldn't go here and there. All this information's about that, and also there's a daily thing very quickly, your day in 30 seconds. All these small formats they weren't very popular in the past few years became really, really, really popular. And what happened is that in some media outlets, we kept that through the day because people got used to just consulting things they know they can scroll down in 15 seconds, 20 seconds. It doesn't mean that they only stay there for that long. Most of the times they stay for longer, but it just feel that format that seems like, this is so 5 years ago, that's so 10 years ago. That format actually was important for people. That was like a service that we're doing for people, and is a great format to pick up and bring back. And in a sense, 2 years ago, people were saying everybody hates notifications on your phone. Like it's all the phones are full of notifications. Everybody hates them. And now you understand that some notifications are actually super important because it's besides the COVID alerts, people got used to air contamination alerts, traffic things, and all that. And with geolocation on your phones, if your media outlet can provide some intel on that. So the thing about user-generated content is that it's things that your users do. It's online. Why is this important? It's important because you're not working on your own bubble. You're working on. I mean, your broad your spectrum of audience could be Pakistan. You could be the Pakistani diaspora. All the people that are from Pakistan. They're all over the world. I'm talking to you guys right now from my home country, Portugal. But even yesterday, I heard some Urdu here. Like I could it's for me. It's almost I can see the sons of Pakistani immigrants here playing cricket on some of the squares, which like 15 years ago wouldn't happen. And it's interesting. So are you guys also catering for people outside of Pakistan? And what you need to understand about this is that it's things that are happening on the internet, on the web, can be interesting, even depending on the context where you stay. No matter, it doesn't matter if you're in Pakistan or outside Pakistan. Some things relate to all these different people all over the place. So you can use user-generated content as it is. You saw somebody doing some crazy thing, or you see somebody doing. For instance, I can tell in Brazil one time there was this guy that used to do sculptures with chocolate, completely random, crazy thing, and a gaming channel used that just to fill some space, and all of a sudden he got 3 million views. And it's one of those complete things. I said we got a lot of views from other things that we're showing because of the chocolate people building things like that. So this is an extreme, completely crazy example, completely random, so for you to understand that people can get interest by a number of things. So two lessons here. You look for things that drive people's attention, just to understand how that works for you to get examples. And at the same time, if you see like 3 things that relate, that look similar from different parts of the world, see, okay, there's this tendency to talk about, how are people dealing with work right now all over the world? How are people going about their things during COVID? How are people doing sports with COVID, how are kids going to school all over the world. So if you feel that there's all these things happening online, you're taking the temperature of the internet. You're measuring and you think, okay, there's something here. I need to cross this over with the things that I normally do and see if I can produce something about that. Which means that there's content out there. There's a lot of all this content out there. Just discover it, use it, change it, find how adapt that, make an adaptation, and put your own tone, your own way of producing things, and adapt that. Don't feel like you need to be producing original content 100% of the time. No one does that. The New York Times doesn't do that. Wall Street Journal doesn't do that. A lot of the content that they have is even some deep stories were already reported by some mid-sized newspaper or in some other place. You just need to find that and see how much that relates to Pakistan or to the Pakistani diaspora all over the world, and see how that can attack. Even if you feel like there's things about young people's rights, women's rights, things like that outside, and you can adapt that to Pakistan, maybe you're bringing a new view into the country, or you're sparking a conversation on that. And those things, and I'm using Pakistan because I'm talking to you guys, but that has happened in Brazil, in Nigeria, in the United States, all these clients that I've been working. So always go on the internet and see what's going. Always check the temperature of the internet every day, and think about something like some of the media outlets that I've worked have had very good surprises, very positive surprises on thinking that their users are not only, content consumers. They not only consume content, but they also produce content. And I've had examples, for instance, in Latin America, that some areas were super complicated for the reporters to go. First, because they didn't have enough reporters for the whole story, and secondly, because it was a dangerous area to go. And they started this program on these really rough neighborhoods where they would give phones to some people, young people even, and go and given basic ways to do things like, can you hold the phone like this and try to shoot still for a few seconds, get some plans, get some photographs, and all of a sudden they have all these different stories, really fresh. Of course, they had to re-edit some of them because technically sometimes they weren't also good, but a lot of times they were. And they all of a sudden had all this different range of content because their users were also becoming content producers. And it became so big in one of the countries, in Chile, that Google gave them some money and some support to get more phones and more people to produce content. So those things are it can go anyway. This is another example. Explainers. Everybody's doing explainers. They're super, super, super impactful. But do your own different explainers. I have some things from France. This is a project that I work with. This is one of my records. This had 67,000% increase in the first week. It doesn't mean it was great, but it also meant that before there were 6 or 7 people subscribed to the channel, and then it became a few hundred thousand more. But it's what I'm saying to you is that there's all these different things you can do, but you need to change the ingredients on your own news outlet. You don't need to copy your neighbor like it is. It's like, you like this kind of foods, I like that kind, but you in your home, it's like one of your traditional dishes. When you're cooking in your home, your mother does that in a specific way, but your aunt or your wife's family or your husband's family, somebody else does it, or it's the same dish, but the ingredients are different because all your media outlets have different ways of doing things. Because this is a common mistake, especially that big news outlets do, is that they always try to go after what the other is saying, and then they become the same, and it doesn't really add anything to the users, so the users go away. And then how can you be proactive and reactive? This is one of the tricks of media. A lot of times we're just very reactive. Something happens and everybody needs to react, and everybody's scrambling around and talking about the same things. But You can, and that is okay when the issues are very important. There's the change of government, there's an explosion. Uh, Pakistan wins the cricket World Cup. All those things you cannot. You can predict some, but you have to be reactive. Other things are you can be proactive. You detect there's something going on, and you are the first one to write a story about that. So you're commanding the conversation. And that's also very important. And then what can you build fast that works and that your community needs? So you go and you ask your community, your users, what are their fears, their needs, something that they need, and what can you build fast? And the building fast is really important. There's a lot of tools out there that we can talk. You probably know some of them, but we can talk. I mean, there's things, even Google tools, for instance, that you can use are super simple, that you can use to publish something very quickly and make it, see if it works or not. If it doesn't work all that well, no problem. You didn't waste a lot of time doing that, and you learned something. But don't make those projects that are super technological and then it take for 2 months to build, and then it doesn't, or more, and it doesn't pan out. Try to do things that you can build with the resources that you have, with free tools, on 2 days, 3 days, and then publish it and see how that, see if you can use your strengths. For instance, if you're very good on politics, if you're very good on sports, try to see whatever is happening that can intersect with those strengths that your newsroom has. And then, go for small products. This is the continuation with high engagement. What things that you can do in your newsroom that don't take a lot of time? As I was saying, they're pretty small, but you can throw them in the internet and have high impact. And also, how can you build dialogues with your audiences? What good examples that you found that you can make them work on your own news outlet? I mean, anything from having a box in your website or in your app that people can ask questions, things like that can go a really long way. And think about that digital interactions are a daily routine for most people. And you need to be there on those digital interactions. You need to make the people that are your listeners, your viewers, part of the process. For instance, podcasts are something interesting, and if you can record something, it really works well for people that have a hard time reading, for people that are, if you're commuting in a bus that's shakes a lot, if somebody puts that on the speaker or on the headphones, it really helps to get your stories out, and you can make them longer or not. But always think that this is a dialogue. You're talking to the other people on the other side are eager to listen to you, and they want to give you input. They want to tell you, okay, this is a great story, but how about this one? Can you talk more about this thing that is happening in Karachi? It's like there's all these things that you need to start having ways of listening to them, and basically create a habit. Create a habit for people to go to your news outlet for that reason, and keep delivering. Be a hub for many things. You can be the experts on foreign politics. You can be an expert on economics. You can be an expert in sports. But people can also have information about other things. You can be a hub for many things. So again, listen to your audience. Go social discovering. Curate some content. You don't have to be generating the content on your own, but you can curate them. And that when all this that I'm saying is a bit of part of the innovation. Just become become the one stop for people that don't have a lot of time for news, but they know they're gonna have some interesting and some useful things on your products. And also, one thing that works really well is that tell personal stories. Tell personal stories that people can relate to. If you're talking about, the working families of 4 or 5, put them in the first person, a father or a mother or an older, sibling talking about how things are working. Make stories work on the first person very personally, and then see, for instance, if there's all this viral content going online about, I don't know, it's cricket or whatever thing, or how motorbikes or whatever things that see if there's any angle of that, that viral thing that can intersect with something that you normally do on your newsroom. And then, build a community. Like, if people go on your website or your product every day, and they talk and you answer, and they talk back and you answer, that's a dialogue. What you're building is a community. And the minute you build a community, you can do anything. Like, you can ask them to, you can ask your advertisers to give you more money. Because the people are going to be there. You can ask them to, subscribe to this product, help us, just give us, I don't know, $2 a year, $2 a month, depending on the product that you're doing. And that you're turning that engagement bit by bit into money. And right now, and this is adamant, the biggest chunk of money is not going to come from advertising. It's going to come from people valuing your services and your products and paying it for either of it, even if it's, a lot of this is all over the world. A lot of people don't value news because they assume they're for free, but that's also because everyone has the same stories. I mean, if you go to a place and they ask you to pay for a story, and if you go to the next door and they have the same story for free, they're not going to pay for your story. But if you give them a unique story and a unique perspective, they consider, like, okay, maybe these guys are worth the money that they're asking for. And that's what one of the things that are really, really important. When you have, but I'll give you a few hints. When you have regular visitors to your site, and you notice that they stay for long, like they go a lot of times and they stay for long, which means that they read the whatever product you have, like the news pieces, they stay for 30 seconds, 45 seconds. It means that they're not just scanning around. Like, it's an intentional visit. They go there, and then you need to realize what kind of news are they coming. They're coming here for. So if they're coming for the generic news, it's a bit tricky, because they can find the generic. So if you start charging for that, they can find the generic news, as I said before, somewhere else. If it's something that only you can provide, like a bit of news with opinion and things, then you might have strike gold. So what you can start doing is that start planning a thing about, okay, this is a very specific thing that we have. You start planning, okay, these people come here, they cannot find this anywhere else. We have a very robust number of people. Let's try to get this. Don't put a paywall. It's like, okay, this was free yesterday, now you need to pay. Just say, okay, we're gonna keep on giving you the same thing, but if you want to hear more about this subject from these writers or this covers we're doing, we'll give you an extra good thing. We'll give you a 24 hours coverage, this and that, for that fee, so that people don't feel like they're being betrayed, like, because yesterday was free and today it's paid. But also at the same time, and this is my advice, is that do something like, for instance, The Guardian in England is doing, which is start teaching people. In a sense, I don't like using the word teaching, but start teaching. If you see that you have solid numbers all through the past 3 months, 4 months on specific subjects, start teaching them about how hard it is to get those news out, how much of an effort you're doing, and how much do you value giving the information to your audience. Now, the problem with news being free is that we start giving the news for free. When the internet came, whoever was in charge wasn't smart enough to realize that they were giving the goods for free. It's like you had a restaurant, and before it was paid, and then something happened, and you decided, oh no, no, I'll just give the food for free, and then the advertising on the walls is going to pay for the food, and that didn't work really well, did it? So right now, what you need to assert is it's tell people, listen, there's no free food. You assume that the food was free, but and they're gonna tell, yeah, but you can have free food in the restaurant next door. Yeah, but it's not very good, is it? So here you can have the if the food is not very good, you can eat it for free, or if it's basic food, you can eat it for free. But if you want, super nice food that no one else has, you can choose and you can pay extra. But this is so much better than the rest. But you can only do that when the metrics have been regular for at least 3 or 4 months, and they're very, two things: they're specific on 2 or 3 subjects, and they have people spend time, the time spent reading is beyond 20 to 25 seconds. I mean, if people don't spend more than 20 to 25 seconds, it means that they like it, but they're not valuing it enough for you to start charging something on that. So you need to think that what you're charging for is access to something that no one else has. Like if you're reporting on Pakistan politics is better than the rest, it might not be enough to charge for. But if your reporting on Pakistan politics is better than the rest, and then you have extra opinion and insights, that's when you have the special dish that you can charge for. So it's it's a give or take. And then maybe you go and you see that people are actually very eager to pay more, you can add extra products and different price ranges. And you can offer like 5 variations, subscribe for a year, subscribe for 2 years, subscribe for a week, subscribe just for 10 articles per month. You need to see how the market is working, going money wise, and then you need to go there. But the 3 things is solid for at least 3 months, a lot of time spent, and a lot of time spent in specific subjects. Basically, when you go and open, you go to all these internet sites, you go to Facebook, you go to Reddit, you go to all over the news sites in Pakistan and in the region, and you go and you go to the sports sites, and you go to the whatever lifestyle site and all that, or fashion. You might notice there's some patterns, that some things that start repeating. So what's hot right now? What's going on right now? It's a specific kind of food. Is a specific kind of attitude. Is this a movement? Are we talking about foods? Not like raw food. Something that's happened in the United States. Like people now don't like to cook their food; they like to eat it raw, uncooked, and goes from this into women's rights or young women's rights, or, for instance, for a few weeks, Black Lives Matters was big in a lot of places in the Americas, in Europe, in Africa. So taking the temperature is going searching on Facebook, Reddit, the news sites. Do something like this for 20 minutes every morning and every afternoon to see what's going on. And it doesn't have to be the more famous thing, but you notice that, okay, they're talking about this here. They've been talking for 3 days about this already. They've been talking about that here. And then you notice that there's some repetition patterns and the patterns and that are happening all over the place. And then you start thinking, okay, we can actually write a story about this on our own view. Like we can give our personal flavor to this story. And because you notice that a bit ahead of what's going on, because this also helps you with one thing, is that normally in newsrooms, because most journalists are very smart people, and we are going all over the place and know a lot of things, but we also have this tendency of not assuming that we might be wrong or might not know everything. So when you're taking the temperature, it's a bit of you're becoming a bit more humble, and you're more like, okay, there's more things here than I realize. It's like when you bring somebody that's very different from you to your newsroom. That person has a different view and can detect all these different things. When you bring a younger reporter, or you bring an old school reporter that has a different vision on politics, like, so it's trying to get off your box and start seeing what's going on online. And that doesn't mean that you need to be publishing pictures of, cats or cute cats or things like that. It means that, for instance, your speciality of your newsroom is money and investments and new business and entrepreneurship. What is this? You can start detecting there's all this new tendency in entrepreneurship on in the United States, in some places of Europe, in some places of Southeastern Asia, in some places of China, and there's like all this new thing that's starting to pan out. And then you think, how can I translate this into the Pakistani reality or the region's reality? And then you detected that first because you can add one and one and one and one, and then you bring all those and you see, okay, there's this tendency of doing automated tasks into artificial intelligence being used to production of this and that content. You're going to be the one that's going to be leading the conversation on in Pakistan about that. But if you hadn't gone taking the temperature of the internet, going on and searching and detecting patterns, you wouldn't have that story. And what you're doing is not like you're copying what it's happening and throwing into your audience. What you're doing is you're taking all that and you're doing a curation and putting your own flavor into that. And that's really important, because if you just repeat what the other persons are doing, you're what do we call it in here in Europe, a parrot. You're just repeating whatever words, that bird that repeats all the words that people say to them. What you need to do is give your own flavor, put your own ingredients on your dish. And that's really important, because your journalists can do this really well. We can do this really well, is that you understand that this is happening here, and you have already heard about this 2 weeks ago, 1 week ago. So you start adding things and you build that and bring that. That can happen inside Pakistan, it can happen outside. I mean, you can take the temperature of the internet in Pakistan. For instance, if you're 35 and there's these things in for younger people in areas of Pakistan, people of 15, 16, 18, and there's this pattern of things that they're doing, right? How they're dancing, how they whatever doing. You notice that this is a tendency. If you're the ones who start reporting on that first and trying to understand why that's happening, first, you're going to get that younger audience, and second, you're going to be the ones leading the conversation. So taking the temperature of the internet is basically seeing what's going on, seeing what the patterns are, and then bringing that to your products with your own voice. Design the experience in a way. So that's the first thing that I know. When the message is super clear and super well designed and the experience is super well built, that's when I say build good experiences. Is like the iPhone wasn't the first touch phone that it appeared, but it was the easiest one to use, and it was very, very friendly and everything. So you can be the best content producers. You can take the temperature all you want. You can have all these things that you can bring dialogues to the people. If it's hard to use, I mean, if you're trying to reinvent the wheel all the time, if you're, I mean, it's better to have a simpler, easier to transmit your message, product or application or website, than to have something very, takes a lot of time to build, but then it's complicated to use. And this also goes with in terms of paying strategies. For instance, paying for news, even if it's a subscription and all that, it's really complicated. I mean, now it's improving, but one of the reasons that people don't pay for subscriptions is because it's hard to subscribe. The reason why things like Netflix goes really well all over the world, it's because it's super easy to subscribe and unsubscribe, and people feel comfortable with that. And it's I have a friend that has built a startup. Is a journalist, and he was a professor at CUNY in New York. He's from Chile, and he built a startup on just making easy for, it's called revenue. It's making easy for people to pay, and it sounds so stupid, but it's a massive success because it's not it's all about the experience. When you see a news piece, an advertisement, when you don't when it's hard for you, when it's not pleasing, when the experience has some hurdles in the middle, it's not going to happen. People go away. It's the number one reason why people go away is the experience. Even if they want to know, even during COVID, if they want to know about the last COVID update and last securities update, it's really, 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 really complicated. It really depends on what you want to do. Websites are always important, but on different levels. Like, websites are your personal, your business card. Like, you have a business card that's when the business cards that you now are using less and less. But your name is you have your own particular name, and you might imagine Raza Khan. You need a web page like a razakhan.com thing. Maybe people are not going to use it a lot, but when they look for it, they're going to see, oh, who's Raza? Raza is this and that. So depends on what you want to do. If your web page is just for an archive of your news pieces, if a web page is just for your own product and your own and for people to look, I want to see more stories about this and that. That could be an interesting thing. But if you're going to do a web page, do it very well. Most of YouTube and Facebook's, for instance, are super well designed for consumption. So if you're going to do your if you don't have any advertising concerns of taking people to your web page, YouTube and Facebook are pretty interesting places to go. I would advise to have a mix of both, because access on YouTube and Facebook, for instance, it's easier and stronger in a sense. But then having your own web page is also pretty important in terms of putting your own flavor and brand on top of it. Because when you're doing videos for YouTube or for Facebook and things like that, your brand is only going to be like imbibed on what you're doing. So you need to reinforce your brand on every video and everything that you're doing, in not only putting like your logos, but also putting the language that you're using. And that is easier to do when you have a web page, but you need to balance that. I mean, it's not a one or the other. I think you need to have both. But of course, if you don't have a lot of means, it's way easier to publish on Facebook and on YouTube. But I would always advise you to have, even if it's a very simple web page, just like a front page saying we're doing this and that, and putting the basic things that you're doing, or just putting a repository of all your videos and all your stories. Because imagine that I go to the web page and I see a story that you're doing about World Cup cricket, whatever. But then you see there's another story about cricket, and there's another story, and there's another story, another story, and I'll stay there and I'll see there, and I notice that I get more and more and what you're doing, and then I pick up stories. If I don't have a web page like that, that's not gonna ever gonna happen. It's like you don't exist online; you only exist on social media. There's a bit of a barrier there. So I would advise you to, even if it's like a simple page, do that and use it as a business card.